Greetings, folks. We are going to be doing a little bit of an overview for Unit 2. If you're still wrapping up on Unit 1, that's perfectly fine. We're going to be working on rhythm, balance, and skill for this particular unit. Thinking about how that translates from your textbook to excuse me, particularly exercising concepts of that nature. Here's an example. We're going to understand repetition and change. We're going to apply it. So I've given you several little examples here of rhythm examples. We have one where there are a ton of circles, so that is the repetition within the rhythm. And then you can see that using varied placement and scale of dots, one achieves balance and rhythm. So here's another example of rhythm. Lines that are used different, some are closer together, some are thicker, some are thinner. So it's very predictable, but there is change. So regular repeated pattern punctuated with change. Here's another, this is more of a photographic example, which I really want you to avoid for this particular exercise. Make sure that you're doing more of a vector art, which is shape art, as opposed to photography. I've given you several sources, and I'll point them out in a moment. So this one might be a little more difficult for you to actually achieve on your own, but you know, something like this is a little easier for you to achieve within your chosen technology, whether you're using Photoshop or Illustrator. Illustrator is probably the best choice if you have that installed on your computer. If not, head over to something like Inkscape or even Canvas or Pixlr, some of the ones I suggested last week. So this is varied placement of different circles placed over different lines. We've got predictability using the different circles and the lines, but they are changing. Some are thick, some are thin. They're not placed in exact repetitious patterns, so we can't call it a pattern. So it's rhythm. Okay, so those are just some examples of how one might achieve rhythm. And then, ooh, boy, okay, let's back up here. And so for the instructions for this week, I want you to read rhythm and balance and also scale in your textbook, the new basics. Then we have resources that I've given you that are pretty important for this week. Those are these links here under resources. Like I said, some of these give you, Vecteezy especially, will give you some really good vector art to use for your exercise. Those are the examples we just looked at. And then once you're done with the exercise, you are to create something very similar to some of the examples I've given you here. And I want you to spend a great deal on figuring it out. Could just be lines, could be circles, something that's regular, repeated, and then it's punctuated with change, or you include change. So these are some swervy lines that change their gradients. They change from black to gray, and they also change in motion. They give that illusion of motion. You don't have to create the illusion of motion in yours. You can just do basic lines or circles, but I want you to practice how that might look on paper or on canvas in your digital world. I've given you 30 points for that particular project for rhythm. And then if you move down, scale is your second requirement. And I want you to choose two shapes. And again, that's where Vecteezy will come into play. That'll be a really important one that you might look into. Vecteezy, the preferred for vector art, because you want to grab a couple pieces of vector art. I really want you to avoid getting web grabs, which means searching something, even if you have a really great idea, searching it and just pulling whatever image you find off the web. That's stealing art. So I want you to just kind of stick to these resources, and you use any one of them. They're going to try and sway you to pay. It is not required that you pay for any of those, just so you know. There is a free version, and sometimes it's limited. Vecteezy actually gives you quite a few of the free vector art pieces. If I click on it, I can show you. Of course, I don't want you to have to pay for that. If you have your own little place that you go, that's fine too, but you're going to want to join And then, like, for example, if I wanted to do a search for an elephant, I do a search for an elephant. So premium probably means that you have to pay. Used to be easier here. So you kind of got to scroll down and find the ones that are not premium. So I can then use these. Okay, and then it says free download. All right. So there are plenty of things available. Just note that when it says premium, it's going to try and like do the charge or the subscription based. But if you keep scrolling down, you've got lots of cool options. I think down here then is sponsored by another site. It gets kind of tricky. They love to find ways to charge you, believe me. So just so you know and you're aware of how that works, but there are plenty of options here. Pexels is a little less about charging you. Okay, so once you find your little images, I want you to find 2 different vector images. It could be more than that if you wanted to set the scene, but I want you to push the scale. For example, an elephant would never be resting on a dog's nose. So push the scale in an opposite manner to make sort of a statement. So once you do that, I think you would be done. And push it a lot. So this elephant's rather small for the dog's nose, and that just would never be the case, right? I had people doing very interesting examples of that. So you have to find 2 things that might relate, maybe a bird and a nest, maybe, or maybe a bird and a tree, maybe the tree's on the bird's nose or something like that, or the tree's resting on the bird or in some way, but find a way to push the scale of normal objects expected to be a certain scale and push them in an opposite way to the opposite extreme. Okay, so that's an example. You know where to find the vector art, and then that's a 20 points for that exercise. Okay, and that's going to be the 2 exercises that you submit here under JetNet. Unit 2, submit here, rhythm and balance, and then scale. And then before you submit, I'd like you to just post it to the forum and respond to your peers with feedback. Okay, so that would be Unit 2 of this week. Take through Sunday midnight to do those 2 little exercises and have fun with them. And let me know if you have any questions. I will see you in the next Unit 2 video.